Thank you. Good afternoon. I am Brianna Byers. I am a permanency supervisor with TFI Family Services. Today, I will be presenting on where are the youth in the permanency planning. During my time in child welfare, I have had to witness youth not fully engaging in their permanency planning or their case planning, as well as case teams struggling on how to engage their youth. I started contemplating how to change this mindset, which led me to my why. Youth in Kansas are being pushed out of foster care before they truly are prepared or ready to live on their own as adults. Permanency case managers are forced to check off tasks on a permanency case plan for completion versus engaging youth in a meaningful permanency plan and transition plans. So let's discuss some of these obstacles. While we have youth who are being pushed out of foster care faster without a thoughtful plan for success, these youth are only seeing their transition plans twice a year. We have miseducation of the court system. As an agency, we do try to educate our courts on the benefits of the youth and what they will receive if and when they leave or age out of care. Permanency workers and youth not engaged together in their permanency case plan. Majority of this is permanency workers not knowing how to engage the youth fully into those case plans. Now let's talk about how many kids in the state of Kansas have an APPLA case plan goal. In the state of Kansas, there are 6 regions. As of August 2021, there are 564 youth with the case plan goal of APPLA, also known as another planned permanent living arrangement. This helped me to develop my project goal. My goal was to help develop a plan to make permanency workers aware of how to help teens with their permanency goal of APPLA. As I was going through the information, I determined adoption was also needed to be included, as many of our youth over the age of 15 are influenced on changing their goal from adoption to APPLA. For TFI, we have 1,381 youth currently in custody. 71 of those youth have case plan goals of APPLA, and 465 have a case plan goal of adoption. As you can see, my wheels started to turn, which brings me to my PICO. If staff who work with youth between the ages of 14 and 17 who do not have an identified adoptive resource or guardian receive training and utilize learned strategies on how to help youth understand the benefits of permanency as compared to independent living, it will result in changed perceptions and increased knowledge of staff and youth, ultimately a result of meaningful permanency plans for youth. Sounds good so far, so let's look at my method. So I conducted a literature review. I looked at literature that talked about the youth voice as well as disconnected youth. I examined data through case reviews, developed a training for permanency supervisors, permanency case managers, and permanency support staff. These are our frontline staff who are working with our youth, as well as collected feedback studies or feedback survey from our training participants, as well as surveying the youth ages 14 to 17. Let's dive into our literature review. I was able to find articles that spoke about the cause of youth being disconnected and the effect later down the road as a result of the youth not having a voice or it being lost. We see that in the United States, there's a decline in employment among young adults in their late teens and early 20s, a huge concern for those who are not currently enrolled in school. Also, there's a disconnect from work and school, which correlates with increased criminal activity, increased drug use, and lower levels of education attainment overall. To help combat this disconnection or the feeling of disconnection, it is important for you to have protective factors. Protective factors as in family, friends, school, community, and society. With this knowledge, it moved me to start my case reviews. I looked at 40 cases total, 20 cases of youth ages 14 to 17 with the goal of APPLA, whether it was primary or concurrent, as well as 20 cases of youth ages 14 to 17 with a goal of adoption without a resource. These 40 cases came from 24 different counties across Kansas. For my case review checklist, I wanted to know the type of recruitment. Was it a video? Was it a website posting? Was it internal agency recruitment? As well as where was the youth involvement? Were they involved in their recruitment, their case planning, or their transition plans? Also, I needed to know where was this information documented that the youth's voice had been expressed, as well as what preparation did the youth have for exiting foster care. After finalizing my checklist, it was time to do some digging. I have to say I was kind of surprised about my findings through the case reviews. I knew that youth were having regular court hearings, permanency case plans, and transition plans. However, in their files, it contained little to no documentation about the youth and their input, from their youth input, which led me to develop my training. The training was called If We Know Better, Then Are We Doing Better? At TFI, we have mandatory trainings that staff must complete prior to obtaining their caseload. I was able to conduct 3 different training sessions, train 57 people. This training was offered to directors, supervisors, case managers, and support workers. The sessions lasted an hour and a half. There was a feedback survey, and from the feedback survey, we had about 40% response rate. So let's take a look at the responses. There were 3 questions to engage the staff's level of awareness. As we can see, the level of awareness before the training, it was low. After the training, the staff indicated that their levels had increased. Here are some results from the training participants' comments on their takeaways from the training. Some of these were really good as far as like hearing how to communicate with the youth that we have, listening to what they have to say and how they feel, as well as the reiterating of the importance of the youth and what they want as they become adults, explaining the importance of updating the youth's transition plans at each case plan or monthly visit. Now let's look at what the youth have to say who were surveyed. This was a convenient sample consisting of 7 youth participants ages 14 to 18, youth who are currently still in care. These interviews were conducted by the phone. We asked the youth about their basics, their demographics, about transition planning. Did they feel heard during the case plan? Was it by their worker or case team, or was it by the court? Since there were only 7 youth participants, this is a small snapshot of just these youth. So let's meet the youth. So we were able to have 3 males and 4 females participate, 4 youth who identified as white, 2 youth who identified as other, and then 1 youth who identified as Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. Ages 14, 15, and 16 and 18 also participated. Now that we have met the youth, let's hear what they have to say. I asked the youth simple questions, simple yes or no questions around transition plans. Has a transition plan been developed to prepare you to leave or age out of foster care? Majority of them said yes. However, when I asked them, did they feel like the transition plan was helpful for them to be prepared to leave or age out of foster care? Majority of them said no. I have to admit, I'm not too surprised about the youth stating that the transition plan wasn't helpful for them. Typically, youth are completing a transition plan every 180 days when a permanency plan is being held, which led me wonder, how did the youth feel about their engagement with their case teams? I wanted to know if the youth felt heard during the transition plan, since they are working with their case teams to develop these plans, and they did feel heard. As well as the youth indicated they felt heard by their case team overall, which is awesome. They didn't feel like their case team encouraged them to leave care. However, when a question was asked about their case team's influence on their attitude of permanency, as we can see, it's kind of close. Some of them said yes and some of them said no. Now, how do the youth feel about their court system? It is good to hear or to see on the screen, the youth felt like their court officials heard them. The youth also stated that the court officials have influenced their attitude on permanency. I have noticed the lack of education or information court officials have about the types of benefits a youth may receive upon leaving or aging out of care, which allows the youth to be heavily influenced on their decision about permanency. Since the case teams and the court officials are not there with youth day to day, I needed to see how the foster parents engaged with the youth. The youth have reported foster parents are not encouraging them to leave care. The youth also reported foster parents are not influenced their attitudes on permanency. However, my hope is that there is some influence on the youth to have a meaningful plan to leave care and to have permanent connections. So what about youth who turn 15? The youth indicated the courts and foster parents' level of efforts to prepare youth for permanency after the age of 15 stayed the same, while the case team's level of efforts increased to prepare the youth for permanency after the age of 15. It is important to note that case team efforts should increase equally to include life skills and recruiting permanent connections. Finally, let's get to the meat of these interviews. The youth were able to express during the survey what could have been done better to prepare them. Although the youth indicate it was a team effort as far as the case team and themselves individually could do more, it is important that we engage all adults of the youth life to help them prepare for permanency. So some challenges and barriers that I had during the youth interviews. I wish there were more youth who were able to participate in the interviews. If I had more participation, I think we would be able to have a better understanding of what we could see or do better for the youth. I did notice that there were some issues with the questions and the youth not fully comprehending the questions that were asked to them. Lastly, with the youth not fully engaged in conversation was a challenge. And this could have been because the time of day that I called or the lack of rapport I had with the youth, since all of the youth were random. However, I know what I want to see next. So I would like to share my findings with my agency's leadership. Also develop a training to be implemented agency-wide and then statewide. This will increase the likelihood that staff are engaging youth ages 14 to 17 in their permanency case planning, and that is to be documented in their files. I would also like to collaborate with community partners and offer the trainings to them, to court staff, to the Department of Children and Families, and other contractors, as well as an ongoing case review for quality assurance. MPLD Impact. So this program has challenged me so much in ways I didn't know I needed to be challenged. I was very nervous about completing this research project because I was like, it's been so long since I've been in grad school, as well as completing data and just learning how to implement that or interpret it. As well as I was very comfortable coming into child welfare with the mindset of being transactional and having that way of thinking because that was the way of life for me. I thought I was going to be useful and impactful with that. However, after entering the program, I was shown a different way and being more transformational. As I started learning the lessons, I started applying them to my life daily. I started to see the change in my professional world. I really started focusing on developing my staff, my coworkers, as well as pushing my director, even though she might not have liked it at times, but I did. As well as I started to see the change in my personal world too. I started to reflect more on my relationships and my friendships and seeing how I can promote change to be a better leader in my friends' lives and those around me. I really want to give a big shout out to Arlene and Sherilyn for sticking it out with me and really giving me their support and pep talks. It was some really rough times there, but they were able to help me so much. And I hope I don't cry. I want to give a big shout out to my mentor for sticking it out with me, for being there through my ups and my downs. She really helped me and pushed me to be better every day.